Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello and welcome, Long Rush Nation. After a little spell, we are back, and it is so glad to be back here. And I'm obviously joined by the big man himself, Murf. How are you, sir? You doing well?
Doing a lot better, thanks, mate. A lot better. It's been a difficult year. Difficult 18 months, about 15 months really. I started to talk about it a little bit with people, but yeah, it was a long stint in hospital, 8 days. Just trying to battle. Unfortunately, I've been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an ongoing autoimmune chronic condition. Chronic disease that will be with me for the rest of my life. And the medication I was on for that gave me pancreatitis, which made me very, very ill and pretty much couldn't do anything. Right. So 8 days in hospital was horrible, but it's good to be out. Been out 10 days now, and I feel great. I feel really good, like probably best I've felt in. Thanks, mate. Feel best I've been for about 6 months. So wasn't quite ready to do this last week. I was only a couple of days out of hospital. I just didn't quite feel ready to do this, but I definitely feel a lot better now. And thanks, Stacey. So yeah, it's good to be here. Good to talk some football. I'm probably a little bit behind. I'm trying to catch up and follow news, and there's a lot of breaking news, so we're gonna start topics and then
as we go through. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about Mike White and Case Keenum signing deals. That's the last you're going to hear about that on this show.
We might touch on Case Keenum because I've got a question on that one. We'll get to that far down the line, I'm sure, because it's not high on the agenda, if nothing else.
Let's get back into it. It's obviously been really, really busy time. So we've been off air probably at the worst possible time with the combine, rookies. Yep. And then
Legal Tampering starting today.
Legal Tampering started a few hours ago. Deals are rolling in. So a lot of deals to go through. I guess let's start with the trades that have happened up until now, and then we can talk about some of the deals that have happened today. The big trade is obviously Carolina moving up to that number one pick. What were your initial thoughts when you saw that come through, and what do you think Carolina are doing with that pick?
Initially, I thought they paid a lot for it. 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and DJ more on top of that. I thought was a fair bit. I think I didn't see them desperate enough to go get one specific QB to make it noteworthy of that. And I guess that's kind of reiterated a little bit by the rumors now that Carolina are happy to move back out of that spot. So it maybe seems like they've tried to jump the market, pay a lower price now than they would do, say, nearer the time of the draft, and then try and resell and recoup something back on it based on the fact that, as we all suspect, there may have been 3, 4, 5 teams that would be interested in the one, and they were probably low on that 5. So they've tried to jump in and grab it and then say to the other 4, hey, we'll take something back for it if you guys want it. Trying to put themselves in a position of power.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is. I think there's an element of that. I think David Tepper, he's made his life in finance, and he's never going to turn down a deal. Like if there's an opportunity to come out of a deal ahead, he's going to do it. But I don't think he's actively shopping that pick. I think they've made that move. They've understood the quarterback has hindered them over the last, basically since he's owned the team and took over from Jerry Richardson. They had an aging Cam Newton, then they traded for Sam Darnold, and they've traded for Baker Mayfield, and they have struggled at the quarterback position. I don't think it's the only reason they've struggled, to be honest. And I think they're at this position now where they've hired a good coaching staff. I think they've really nailed the coaching staff and getting the right team in there in Carolina now. And I think now it's about who do you bring in to build around that team. And I kind of I think it's an overpay. I don't like moving up in drafts unless there's a specific reason to move up in one. And I get it. They want a quarterback. I still think they would have got I think they could have paid less to go. Getting rid of DJ Moore doesn't feel like it's a great move. I'm not the biggest DJ Moore fan. We'll get onto his fantasy implications in a minute. I'm not the biggest DJ Moore fan. I think he's a good player in what's been a pretty poor team, but I don't think he's excelled and been an elite. I don't think he's an elite receiver. I think he's a very competent receiver. I don't think he's a true alpha. I think he's a good secondary receiver on a team, like probably one of the better secondary receivers you could kind of have. I'm not sure but I still think they've given up a lot for a gamble, and it is what it is. It's a gamble. Like, you've got to get this right now because you've given up 2 first seconds. I mean, if you think, then you look at comparison to what San Francisco gave up for Trey Lance at 3, and that was 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
You sit there and think, well, okay, they haven't been gouged as much. And the thing is, part of what you said was true. David Tepper's done this now, knowing that only escalates with 45 days from draft day. That price goes to 3 first, 4 first, whatever it's going to be, because the Bears could take the pick. I think it's a good deal for the Bears because they don't need to. They're still getting a top 10 pick this year, which is what they need.
Yeah, I love it for the Bears.
Yeah, I think the Bears have done well. They get DJ Moore, they got that weapon. I still think they need a quality number 1 receiver, but they've got the picks to do that now. You know, they could shop around, get back into the first round with those 2 seconds and package and maybe go and target someone like Addison, who they could probably
take 2 solid linemen, which was a big fault of theirs last year. Second round, they're going to be 2 decent linemen out there.
And they're picking at the top of the second anyway. So actually, they really have that extra first-round pick. Yeah, so they got pick 32. So you look at that and think, because there's a Miami have lost a pick this year. So really, so as a result, they are getting the 32nd player on the board, but they just don't get the 5th year. They could trade up and make that the 5th year pick. There's an opportunity probably to do that. So they could give away like a really late round draft choice to get that 5th year. I would probably look to do that and take someone like Addison if he's on the board. Then I think would be someone who could be very capable. And you have him and Moore, Claypool. All of a sudden, you'd start to have some weapons there, and you think they need to change the game plan. We'll get onto that in a bit, but yeah, Caroline's going to be an interesting one. I think they're a real team to watch. I think if they didn't hire the coaching staff that they had, I'd be more concerned. But I think given who they've got, and Frank Reich knows how to get players in free agency. He knows how to make the best of, I don't want to say average talent, but not elite talent. So I think they'll be fine. But who do you think is the quarterback that they've traded up for?
I was just about to ask you when you stopped
Okay,
talking.
go on then.
For me, I'd say the safest floor player is probably going to be Bryce Young.
Yeah, see, I don't think that's who they're going for. I think they're going for CJ Stroud. I think CJ Stroud, I think for the way that Frank Reich plays, I think for what he looks for in a quarterback, and I think for the combination of floor plus ceiling, I would take Bryce Young. I think for me, I look at the quarterbacks in this class. I'm not wowed. I'm similar to last year, really. Yeah. I'm not wowed. There isn't a quarterback here
coming through.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at this and thinking, but I do think Bryce Young will be a very, very good professional. I think he will be, I think he's not going to shoot the lights out. I don't think he's going to, threaten any Hall of Fames, but I do think he will be a very solid pro. And I think he has a very high floor. I think he has a decent ceiling. And I think he would bring a sense of maturity and calmness and personality to a good team, to a team. And I think with someone like Frank Reich, if they went that way, I would think it would be the right decision. I can understand, but I think it will be CJ Stroud. I just think CJ Stroud, for what Frank Reich will want to do with his coaching concepts, just for me seems like a better fit. The wheels going round is it's going to be Anthony Richardson. That would just be the most, honestly, I couldn't tell you.
Trade to 1 for Anthony Richardson.
Absolutely not. That for me would be the single worst trade in NFL history.
Has the highest ceiling of all of these players. I think he does.
I just don't.
But he also has the lowest floor because of the passing attributes.
I'm just so out on Anthony Richardson. Like Anthony Richardson for me, I've watched him. I'm a Florida Gator fan. Anthony Richardson is Jameis Winston with rushing. That is what he is.
Yeah.
He will have days that will absolutely dazzle you. Those days are very rare. And then he will do something. He will throw a ball into triple coverage with no receiver within 10 yards. And he has this Superman complex. You've got to remember, his college profile is poor. Like, it is poor. Like, people sit and look at his combine and have been wowed and dazzled, and mock drafts are putting him at like 106, 107, 108 now in a 1 QB dynasty mock draft, rookie mock draft. You're sitting there thinking, what are you doing? Like, because of his rushing floor, because they see Jalen Hurts and they see Justin Fields and think, well, Justin Fields isn't the best passer of the ball, but he rushes and he gets fantasy points. The bottom line is Anthony Richardson was throwing 53% completion percentage in college. He had decent receivers, not great, but he had decent receivers. They just would he threw 17 touchdowns in his final season. It's bad.
Right there.
Go on then.
We said about breaking news. Apparently, Aaron Rodgers has been traded to the Jets.
Wow. We're going to break that live, are we? Wow. I've just seen Rap Sheet. Rap Sheet's just said 21 seconds ago, nothing has happened.
Okay. This has come from a number of places. You've got Garrett Wilson tweeting, you should see the smile on my face right now.
Wow. Okay. So we think it's going to happen.
Probably not signed yet, but yeah.
Aaron Lemming went Rap Sheet reporting on NFL Network that nothing has happened as of now between Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Ian Rappaport, I wish it did. I wish something had happened, but nothing has happened 47 seconds ago.
It will happen, right? We're at that. Everyone's agreed on that now. Whether it's done now, done next week.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to happen, so fine.
They're kind of the only team that have actually shown a real vested interest in acquiring him.
Well, I think they're the only team that got the cap space to do it.
Dov Kleeman tweeted.
Okay, well, he's an aggregator, so he's picked that from somebody. It sounds like it's going to happen, like you say, but it hasn't. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Anthony Richardson for me is just someone who I'm deeply concerned about. He's someone who I don't think is going to do it at the next level. I think he's got good rushing floor, but passability, mental decision making is poor. He's played 1 year of college. Here's what's funny. The people that absolutely love Anthony Richardson absolutely hate Kyle Trask. This is what I find hilarious. And Kyle Trask played in his senior year at a Heisman level rate. Like he was legitimately in Heisman Trophy contentions. I'm not saying he should have won it, but he was very good. And people say, well, he had Kyle Pitts. Yeah, okay, he had Kyle Pitts. But he also had, other receivers, and he did very, very well. But he read the game. He kept them in. He made a lot of plays. Anthony Richardson couldn't even beat out Emory Jones for a starting job.
Correct.
Like, couldn't even beat him out. Like, he ended up playing second string almost the entire season to Emory Jones, who is, if I had to compare him to like an NFL quarterback for someone, he would be like, God, I'm really struggling. He would be like, he'd be like Chris Sims. He'd be like someone who he was there. He kind of made it, but he just wasn't very good. And like that, it's like Emory Jones was just bang average at everything. He could just do everything not even bang average. He was below average at everything, but he was
Kurt Benkert comes to mind.
Oh, something like that. Yeah. We're talking about someone who just was not good enough to be a starting quarterback for an SEC powerhouse, former powerhouse, whatever you want to call them. And Anthony Richardson couldn't beat him out for a job. That tells me. And by the way, he didn't even beat him out for a job when they were 6 and 7. Like, he couldn't even get, he'd get in for a game, play badly, they'll go back to Jones. Like, we're talking about in a season where they weren't even bowl eligible. He couldn't even beat him out. Like, that's how bad. And then he goes 6 and 7 the following year. Anthony Richardson, for me, shouldn't have declared. Like, he should have come back.
Yeah.
I think he needs a year. Like, for me, I look at Anthony Richardson, I think if any team that drafts him, he's got to sit 2 years. He's got to sit 2 years minimum, because he's nowhere near getting near an NFL team. He will be eaten alive.
but he's had a solid year. He's had a fair year, let's face it, right?
No, I don't think he had
the risk is he goes back to college and he doesn't perform like he hasn't performed previously, and he's lost all hope there.
I mean, the only thing that saves him is his combine performance is amazing, and he will probably be a first-round pick because someone will be desperate enough to take him.
They will.
But I just look at him and think he is, for me, the most bust-worthy QB I've seen for. I mean, I was worried about Lance. I talked about Lance on here publicly that I wasn't so sure that Lance was ready for the NFL. That he, that I felt he would be someone who I would be severely worried about long term, and I would have had someone like Mac Jones over Trey Lance. And I know I probably will still get stick for that now, but I still think now Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Trey Lance for the NFL.
Okay.
I think Anthony Richardson for me is just a long way away. Like I look at CJ Stroud, I look at Bryce Young, and I look at Will Levis, and I look at those three QBs and think I'm not the biggest Levis guy, but I think I can see him being an Andy Dalton level quarterback in the NFL. Like someone who is good, won't hold your team back from winning playoff games, but I'm not sure he's dynamic enough to win you the big games on his own. Like I think he's someone who's very solid. He won't lose you games, but he won't win you a lot of games. He will just keep you in games. I think that's kind of where I see Levis. I think the other two are a bit of a lift above. So so I think it's gonna be interesting. But I think they go Stroud. I think that's where I would see them go. And I think the Bears, they can go, and like you said, they can go and get another receiver. They can go get themselves some O-line. They can go get themselves some D-line. I mean, they've just brought TJ Edwards in today to help their linebacker core, which I think is phenomenal. I think that's, for me, one of the best linebackers in the NFL over the last 2 seasons. I think it's a great bit of free agency business to get him in the door. I think they've done, we'll see what they do in free agency to see where they've addressed some holes, but they've got options now with those picks, and they'll build from there. So they kind of traded some picks to get Fields. I'm not convinced Fields is the answer long term, and then that leads me to DJ Moore. Is people are now so excited that DJ Moore has got the best quarterback he's ever had.
That he has. He's still not a great quarterback,
but the quarterback throws 21 times a game.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, people are like, he's going to have monster volume. Yeah, he could have a 33% target share, so he gets 7 targets a game.
Yeah.
So Fields' completion percentage is 60%, so he gets 4. So you're looking at 7 targets, 4 catches for 80 yards.
At best. Yeah.
Am I really that excited about a player who's going to get 7 targets, 4 catches for 80 yards a week? And and I don't even think if we're going averages, it's probably not even going to be 80. It's going to be more like 60 odd.
If that, yeah.
Are we that excited about DJ Moore in Chicago? I'm not. I'm really not. I think I've got a couple of shares of DJ Moore. I might try and trade on the hype if I can, because for me, I look at those numbers and think there's just not enough basketball, and they might change the offense and they might do something different. And if they do, then fine. But Fields needs to throw 28, 30 times a game for DJ Moore to be anywhere near what he did in Carolina. And what he did in Carolina wasn't shooting the lights out. It wasn't bad, don't get me wrong, but he didn't shoot the lights out. Like for me, DJ Moore right now, massive arrow down. If I could sell him, I will. I'd get him off my rosters because I'm just not convinced he's going to reach these heights. And as I say, we're not talking about AJ Brown here, who makes those really explosive big plays off nothing. Yeah, I'm just not in on that trade. I don't think, but I think from a footballing perspective, I think they get better with him in there, and I think he's better than anyone they've got on the roster. But from a fantasy perspective, I'm all kinds of out on DJ Moore now.
So another trade that's been announced today then is Miami picking up Jalen Ramsey, cost of a 3rd round pick, and Hunter Long, who's tight end there. So how did you see that one?
They needed cornerback help. You're going to get one of the best in the NFL. They're in a window, aren't they, Miami now? They look at what they did last year. They'll look at that and think they're in a chance to they're going all in. They're pushing all the chips in the middle to win. 3rd round pick isn't bad. I mean, I've seen people say it's a great bargain. They're taking on a lot of cap. This is a 2-year move, really, for Jalen Ramsey. They pushed themselves into the Super Bowl window. They traded for Tyreek Hill. They've traded for Jalen Ramsey. They're getting proven winners, Super Bowl winners, and they're putting together, they're going a little bit of the Rams ilk of just getting these seasoned veterans on big contracts to go make a run at it. And they're in a division where they can make a run at it because they're probably the best team in their division. They're in a except for the Bills, really. So you can but they're trying to push closer to the Bills. It's going to be a tough coin flip between them. And then they're in a tough conference. Tough to, they have got, their division is getting better. If Aaron Rodgers ends up and Aaron Rodgers will elevate the Jets, because the Jets, as much as Aaron Rodgers is past it, he will stop all those mistakes. He will stop what happened last year with Zach Wilson, they will move the ball down the field a little bit. They will get better on offense, but he won't turn the ball over. And with that D, they don't need to score a lot of points. If Aaron Rodgers gets 25 points a game on offense, they will win a lot of games, the Jets, because that D is as good as any D in the NFL.
Yeah.
They're in a tough division. They have to push in. They're in a 2-year window, I think, to win it all. I think you'll see some big moves from Miami. I like it. The Rams had to obviously clear some space. They clearly decided that they're not in the Super Bowl window anymore, which makes sense after last season. So you move the cap space on, you get something back. Third round pick's not bad. It's people are saying, why is he not going for a first or second? The money on his contract was huge.
It's huge, yeah.
So, at the end of the day, no, there aren't many teams taking that, and they're certainly realizing that they're doing the Rams a favor, and they have done the Rams a favor by taking that contract away. So, I think it's a good deal for all parties. I think everyone kind of wins in that one, and the Rams will make them better. They'll be a better organized unit, and that was a bit of an area of weakness at times for them last year. So,
what worries me with the Dolphins though is they're great going in, get these vets, take the cap on, and have a run at it, as you say. What happens week 2, week 3, week 4 when Tua gets a concussion again, which is seemingly almost inevitable? I think his 5th-year option this week as well.
Well, you have to pick up the 5th-year option. I think the bottom line is you pick up the 5th-year option because it's just good business sense. I think we just seen what happened with Derek Carr, where Josh Jacobs, they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, and we've just seen it with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones at the Giants, they didn't take the 5th-year option. They're now paying him an absolute bomb. The bottom line is, I think if you take a player in the first round, you've almost automatically got to pick the first round option up unless they're really that bad. And I think Tua is starting. So the bottom line is he's starting, he's playing, he's the quarterback. You've got to take the 5th-year option. You're guaranteed against everything but injury. So, it's fine. I don't have a problem with them taking the 5th-year option because it's going to be cheaper than paying him now. And what will be interesting now is to see if they pay him before the season, because that will tell you, is there a referendum on Tua? Because they're not going to let Tua go to the end of this year and then try and negotiate. Because if they do that, that tells you that they're seriously open to letting him go, because he's either going to do one or two things. He's either going to have a really good year and take them deep into the playoffs, maybe Super Bowl, whatever. Yeah. And then you've got to pay him an absolute fortune. And then you think you're backed into a corner there because he's taking you to the deep. and then you kind of like, well, you either pay him or he goes, or he doesn't have a good year, gets injured, and then you move on. And I think it's a bit of a referendum on Tua if they don't sort a deal before the season starts. They might do. They might have taken the option, and then we see what happens. Because you don't want Tua to go into his 5th-year option with that being his final year, because he holds so much leverage. Right. So I think, or even during the season, yeah, exactly. We're now seeing this play out with Lamar Jackson. He's on a 5th-year option. Oh, well, he's tagged now. So they took the 5th-year option. He's on the tag. He's on a non-exclusive tag, which means he can negotiate offers on the table to other teams. And that simply means, so there's 2 types of tag. The non-exclusive is very rare. You don't see it very often.
Only one person's ever signed one and swapped organizations as well.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often. So to see that was interesting. I think that tells you that they're trying to give Lamar Jackson some space and they're trying to respect his wishes. And I think they've come to that agreement of, we feel confident. That to me is Baltimore saying, we feel confident we'll get a deal done. Yep. Because I think they've agreed to that, thinking, I don't think anyone's going to pay him as much as we are, or that we're prepared to pay him. And I think that says, we're going to give you an element of trust. We're going to let you test the market. You go out there and you go find a deal. And if you think you can beat what we've got, come back to us, come talk to us. We'll see what it is. Yep. And I think that shows quite a lot of confidence. That's a big boy move.
It is, yeah.
That's a big boy move. Like, to do that, to play with your franchise quarterback, MVP quarterback, and do that. That's a big boy move. That shows me that they've got some real cojones. Like, they really believe that they're going to hold on to Lamar Jackson. So I like it. It is risky, but I like it. It's bold. It's better than just tagging him and then saying, well, you're tagged, see you later, and then you sour the negotiations. You know, it's a good management sort of structure. It shouldn't have got this far, but you have. So yeah, I think Tua will be interesting. I'm not sure if he's the QB of the future. I still hold this referendum on him personally. I did better last year than he has done. They're backing him. Be interesting to see what he does this year. He did take a step forward, but you know, for me, he was the third best quarterback in that class. He still sits as the third best quarterback in that class. But I would say now he's better than any quarterback we've seen in the last two classes.
Agreed.
So, you know, there is that potentially. Yeah, potentially.
Tua enters this draft. He's the first quarterback off the board, I feel.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I think he would. I think he would be for sure. I think you know, there is a lot to like about Bryce Young, but yeah, I think if I'm taking Bryce Young and Tua, I'll probably take Tua just for the more athletic gifts, but then you're taking the injury risk. But yeah. But I think it's definitely interesting.
So another QB we touched on just now was Daniel Jones. Obviously, the Giants have decided to pay him, and the Seahawks did similar with Geno Smith. Surprised at either of those?
I'm not too surprised with Geno.
They were a good deal. They got a lot front loaded and almost an out after a year, haven't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, people look at Geno Smith's contract and they look at the numbers and think, how has he earned that much money? But actually, when you look behind the numbers, you know, the thing you've got to remember here is agents are always going to put out the big number. So you see these 4-year, 80, 90, $100 million deals, right? I guarantee you that less than 1% of players ever earn anywhere near that kind of money.
Yep.
It's all about the guaranteed line. It's all about how much money they're actually going to put in their pocket. So when you look at that when we look at this deal, right, with Geno, right? So Geno's cap hit this year for the Seahawks on this, so it's 3 years, $75 million. His cap hit this year is 10. It's 10 mil, right? 10.1, sorry, mil, right? And most of that's in signing. They could get out this year after 1 year and take a $17.4 million hit, which means actually it's not a $40 million guarantee. It says $40 million total guarantee, but on the cap line, he's actually only guaranteed at signing $27.3 million.
Right.
Which means they can get out after 1 year. If he has a horrendous year, they get out, they've taken the hit. They'll take 17.4 mil hit next year, but they're out.
Yeah.
And it's a hit. Don't get me wrong. It's an expensive one, but you're out in 1 year rather than being tied to him for 3 years, have to get a bridge in, have to pay him and someone else, have the quarterback controversy. They could make a really clean break. And they're not in for anywhere near the 75 million we're talking about. Now, if he does do well this year, they are on the hook for 31.2 million next year, which is high.
They can restructure that.
But they could restructure it. They could do some things. You know, I think the bottom line is Geno Smith's probably quite happy to get the contract that he's got because he's not earned anywhere near as much money in his career. I think career earnings to date, we're looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 million to date, roughly. Just quick maths. So, you know, he's going to earn more this year, well, more guaranteed at signing, 27.3. That's what he's going to get. You know, that money's basically paid to his bank account now, and they spread that money over 3 years. So, you know, for him, he's set up for life. Regardless of what happens now, he's set up for life. He's just made $27.3 million. That money's sitting in his bank account.
He earned it last year.
I absolutely did. Listen, and I don't think it's a bad deal for either party. I think it's good of Geno Smith to recognize that he's not in the Daniel Jones and Derek Carr money range.
Yep.
But at the same point, he's taken a deal that's team friendly to a point, and he's given himself a chance to prove himself, to make himself worthy of the future money. Seahawks can get out, but at the same point, if they don't get out, you know, he can earn decent money next year. Most of that staggered with roster bonuses, which is good. But at the same point, even if he plays on that deal next year, which is quite a bit of money, they can get out the following year, the Seahawks, for 8.7. So the Seahawks effectively have an out every year on Geno Smith. So it's not a long-term commitment. Geno has the chance to keep that job. I think it's a nice deal for all parties. I don't hate it. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, I mean, this is a whopper of a contract.
It is. But again, they've got a kind of out after kind of 2 years on this one, I feel.
Yeah, so if I'm just breaking down the numbers now, and if you look at, again, they do have an out. It's 18 million after 2 years.
Yeah.
But the cap hit is high. So the cap hit this year is 21 million, which isn't too bad. But the following year, 2024, the cap hit is $45 million.
Yeah.
And they're not getting out of that. So they have committed. So it's 92 million guaranteed to Daniel Jones, but he's got basically 66 fully guaranteed. So that's 66 million over the first 2 years. Plus 18 dead cap. So so 60, 70, 80, 84. It's 84 million, like, fully guaranteed.
Nice. Thank you very much.
I mean, listen, his agent has got to be the best agent in football. It's unbelievable. I mean, like, Daniel Jones is now, I mean, his kids are minted for life. His kids are minted for life. Like, you know, this is a staggering deal. And again, this is a perfect example of why you take the 5th-year option. They didn't take the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones. I appreciate that's the old regime, but they had a year to think. They would have had a year to think about this. They had a year to go. He's had a good year. That's get him to the table. Try and you either hedge your bets. You either put a friendly deal out there, and if he says no, he said, right, okay, go out and do it again.
Yep.
And you're paying him 20 million this year. So, but you know what he's getting paid this year to what he would have been on the 5th-year option are very similar. So the money's not that different this year, but you don't have this huge guarantee that
you get out if he doesn't deliver this year.
But that is the point. And this is it. And when you've got question marks over a quarterback, you have to sit there and think, has the franchise made the best possible decision in the quarterback decision? And I don't think they have here. I think they've panicked. They've looked at the QB market and they've gone, we made the playoffs last year. We have an opportunity to do something. We're better with Daniel Jones than we are with anybody else. And that's where they are. And because they overachieved, they're a bit stuck because they made the playoffs. And because they advanced around, so they've got no pick that's going to get them a quarterback. They've got no option to get a quarterback, so they have to pay him. It's literally Daniel Jones and their agents had them over a huge barrel, and they worked it to their advantage. And now Daniel Jones is a Giant for the next 2, probably 3 years. And fair enough, and they have to live with that now. And yeah, I mean, it is what it, I mean. I this is why the 5th-year option is so important. For me, there's very few reasons why you wouldn't take the 5th-year option if you're taking a player in the first round. Certain players, Clyde Whittelaire probably wouldn't take a 5th-year option on. There's a few players I wouldn't, but Daniel Jones, Josh Jacobs, yeah, they were players I was taking 5th-year options on. Like the Raiders have taken a $3 million cap hit for not signing him by tagging him.
Yep.
It's just, you've just thrown $3 million away for no reason.
Yep.
Like it's mind boggling, like how bad front offices make really bad decisions. And then people wonder why these teams don't win. The reasons the Giants don't win, the reasons why the Raiders don't win is their front office continue to bungle the ball for years and years. And look, this is harsh on this regime. It's a new regime. They didn't make the decision on Daniel Jones. That decision was made by Dave Gettleman. And so it's harsh to sit here and judge the new regime on this decision of Daniel Jones, but they've paid him. So they've inherited this situation and they've done, I think, probably the worst thing they could do, which was commit a long-term, and I don't know how they've committed themselves to this kind of money, but it's very, very big money, and we'll have to see how it plans out. I don't think it's going to be brilliant for the Giants going forward. So I don't love
Sorry
it,
about
but then yeah, no, you're fine. And then we've obviously had other quarterback moves today. So we've had Jimmy G go to the Raiders today. Now, if you want to talk about the Raiders bungling, they bungled for me Derek Carr situation last year with a contract, giving him a deal. They should have just left him on his deal, but they didn't. They paid him more money for more security and then ended up paying out more money for no reason. And then they've done the Josh Jacobs deal. What they've done with Jimmy G here is absolutely brilliant. Like as much as Jimmy G isn't the best QB in the world, and he's not someone that I would sit here and say is just truly unbelievable. He is a winning QB. He's been to the playoffs a number of times. He has been to a number of playoff appearances. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to NFC title games. He is a good enough quarterback to get you to big games. I don't think he's the quarterback that gets you to win a Super Bowl on his own, but I think he certainly can win a Super Bowl with a decent defense, with a decent offensive talent around him. You look at the deal that they've given him and you compare the deals that we've just talked about. Geno Smith, I don't think is a bad deal at all, but we look at what Derek Carr got. Derek Carr got a big deal. Daniel Jones got a big deal. I look at the Jimmy G deal and think this is a brilliant deal. It's a 3-year deal. It's $67.5 million, but it's only $34 million guaranteed. And we don't know how that's structured. But I imagine it's probably only going to be like 17-17 or 20-17 or 20-14, something like that over the first 2 years. And they're going to get out of this contract if he doesn't perform in the first year or 2 years. He's reuniting with an old coordinator in Josh McDaniels, so someone he knows this system. He's going to walk in like a glove. He's going to know so much of it already. He's got Devontae Adams to throw the ball to. For me, this deal just made a lot of sense. As soon as Derek Carr left, this deal just instantly was like, this was going to happen for me, and it made a lot of sense. Everyone was talking about Jimmy G to Tampa. That was never going to happen. Tampa weren't going to put this kind of money on the table, and there's no chance they were ever going to put any money on this table for anyone like this. It just makes a lot of sense. I think I look at that deal and think Jimmy G's an upgrade for what Josh McDaniels needs in that offense. He's a good decision maker. He's very accurate. He runs a very clean pocket. He's very well structured as a quarterback. He's not dynamic. He's not going to sit there and win you a lot of games on his own. He's not going to make you a champion overnight, but he will eradicate a lot of the mistakes that someone like Derek Carr was making last season. And if they can sort the D out and if they can play at a high level, they will be a better team with Derek Carr. And it's amazing. You're seeing all this talent now going from the NFC to the AFC. Jalen Ramsey's gone. Jimmy G's gone.
Aaron Rodgers,
and you're looking at, and the players coming back the other way, Derek Carr. We're looking at the way that these players are going. The AFC is going to continue to get stacked.
Yeah.
All the talent now is stockpiling in the AFC, and then we're getting basically, and it's not exclusive that we've seen some players go potentially the other way, but the notable signings are being made by AFC teams, and the notable big winners will be AFC teams. That's what we're seeing. Broncos made big moves today on their offensive line. We're looking at deals that are getting done, and it is mostly at the forefront. The AFC that are getting these deals. So
fair.
It's interesting to see Jimmy G back in the AFC, back with McDaniels. I think it's a good move, but I think the money just makes a lot of sense to me. Like that, I look at that. Oh, here we go. Some breaking news. Von Bell is going to the Panthers.
Okay.
I like that. That's a good move.
At what cost?
No idea on cost. It's literally just he's going to the Panthers as per rap sheet and Tom Pelissero.
Okay, cool.
I like that. That's a good bit of business for for them. So yeah, big fan of that.
Experienced head of the secondary.
Yeah, I think I look at you're looking at players who can just command, and it's a big area for them. They played well at times last season, but not. It did let them down. They do need some winners in there. It'd be interesting to see what the money is when that comes out. I don't think it's going to be stupid money, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's pretty decent money. You look at what they're doing, and I think they could be a team to watch. Carolina, be interesting what they do with quarterback. Maybe they're not this year, but It looks like they're building. Don't forget, they spent so many draft picks on the D the last couple of years that they have a lot of talent, and just getting a couple of senior heads in there, similar to what the Bucks did. Don't forget when the Bucks won the Super Bowl, they rebuilt the quarterback room, and then they rebuilt it again because it wasn't great the first time. And then they bought Anton Winfield Jr. in, they bought Devin White in, they bought a lot of picks on D. JTS on there. They spent a lot of picks on that D, and then they went in and got just a couple of serial players, experienced players to come in and help them on D. And you talk about players like the following year, Richard Sherman, and just sprinkle players almost to be the coaches on the field. And I think Von Bell will fit that kind of role and personality quite well. So I like what they're doing down there, but except for what they traded for the QB.
Fair. Derek Carr to the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, 100 million guaranteed. How's Derek Carr got 100 million guaranteed? I like Derek Carr, by the way.
Got 100 million to give Derek Carr.
Well, it's just the way they structure the deals. You look at how they've structured it. They can get out in 3 years for 11 mil. He's on nothing this year, 7.2 mil this year. They've got a void year in there of 5.7 mil, which is year 5 is age 36 year. It's effectively a 4-year, $150 million. He's not going to earn 150 million.
Well,
but he is guaranteed at signing 60 mil. He's going to get somewhere between 60 and 100 mil on this contract. It's just mind boggling. They can't get out for 2 years. So he's there minimum 2 years. They could get out third year for 17.1 mil. They could get out after the 4th year for 11.4. Mental. I like Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Do I think he's $100 million quarterback? No. I just think that is I thought he might get a 25 mil, maybe close to 30 mil a season. And I thought if someone's paying 30 mil a season, that's a bit mad. But if you're in a win now mode and he's someone that can get you somewhere, fine. The Saints, given how bad that with the cap and the roster, it just feels like a mistake waiting to happen. I just look at that and think, I'm not sure what they're really thinking. I'm not sold on Dennis Allen being a full-time head coach. I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. Great. Don't get me wrong. I think one of the best in the NFL. Am I sold on him being a head coach? Didn't see enough last year. Is he much better than Jameis Winston for the money?
Is he much better than Andy Dalton for the money?
Well, there you go. I think he is, but I don't think he's. I don't think he's much better. I think he's better. I think Derek Carr is probably 15th, 16th best quarterback in the league.
From 100, you'd score Derek Carr at 70. You'd put Winston and Dalton about
in the early 60s.
55,
yeah. That feels right to me.
Yeah. I'd agree. So,
and I think is it that
change.
It's a lot of money for marginal improvement.
Correct.
And listen, he doesn't make if he can get a handle on the offense, he won't turn the ball over too much. But I look at their weapons. Alvin Kamara, is he going to he's probably going to get 6 games ban potentially. So you got no real running. Taysom Hill, he's Taysom Hill. So whatever. You got Michael Thomas who hasn't played for. You got Michael Thomas who's barely played for 3 years. They haven't got money to buy to sign players. Yeah. Do we really have any confidence that this year is going to be a good year for the Saints? No. And you're putting a lot of money in. Well, you're not putting a lot of money this year, but a lot of money in the future years. They're basically saying to the world that we think Derek Carr is good enough to put us on a playoff run.
Yep.
We're not going to make the playoffs this year. But we're not going to make a playoff run this year, but we're going to do it in the next 2-3 years. And I sit there and think, well, Carolina rebuilding, Atlanta rebuilding, the Bucks start their rebuild about the same time as the Saints, and I think they're starting from a better base because they've got a lot younger players. Yep. I think they've got to get out of cap help. I look at the Saints and think they're the 4th best team in the NFC East and in the NFC South, and I wouldn't be paying Derek Carr. I would have rolled with Dalton for another year. I really would have just sat this year and just gone, right, this year's going to be crap. fine. We'll reevaluate our options in 12 months' time. I'd have bought Winston and Dalton back and let them fight them out. And neither of them were on big money. I mean, I think Winston was on 15 mil.
Yeah.
So maybe they had to cut him and but I'd have rolled. Yeah, you got Taysom Hill, Andy Dalton. Maybe you bring another cheap one like Baker in. Yeah, I just don't think I'd have paid the money this year for Derek Carr or for any quarterback. I'd have eaten the money, and then I would have had the referendum in 12 months' time and say, where are we in 12 months? Are we someone? Can we build? And we need a piece at quarterback that's going to help.
If you're the head coach, you need the front office's authority and permission to do that, right?
Of course you do. Which says, and I think this is a referendum on Dennis Allen now. So I think now you've paid Derek Carr. Does Derek Allen get a third year if it's a bad year this year? No, I'm not so sure. Given the trades they made last year, they got Chris Olave. I always feel the biggest mistake you can make in the NFL is to pay average talent above average money. And I look at the deals for Daniel Jones and Derek Carr and think these are just screaming mistakes of franchises that continue to make really basic mistakes. And the Buccaneers were good at this for years, always paying average talent above average, like mercenary money to come. Yeah. And this is how you don't win. This is how you don't make playoffs, and this is where you have long playoff droughts, because you make fundamental errors that continue to hold you back for years.
Yeah, they cost you. Yeah.
Whereas I look at the Jimmy G deal and think, if it doesn't work, it's not that much that you get out after 2 years. If it doesn't work, and it's not, and I think he's a better quarterback than any of the ones we're talking about. And I think he's on the cheaper money. Geno Smith, don't think that's a bad deal. You get out after 1 year. You can. I don't mind taking a risk, but you've got to make it so you're not paying for it for the. Derek Carr is there for 3 years.
Yeah,
he's there for 3 years. So if it doesn't work, if it doesn't pan out, you are snookered for the next 3 years. And his cap hits for the next 3 years. Forget this year: 7.2 million, 35.7 million, and 45.7 million.
So he's got a new scheme, new offense.
New scheme, new offense.
Dennis Allen goes. He'll have a new head coach, probably a new coordinator. And that's
where
2 years gone.
And where have we seen this story before, where they turn over the offensive coordinator or the head coach every year? We've seen it. Yeah. This is what happened to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was the number one pick. He had 4 offensive coordinators in 5 years. This is what happens. It's not sustainable success. These are the mistakes. And this is why with free agency, and the best advice I can give to anyone over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Don't look at the top number. Just look at the guaranteed number. Look at where they're putting the money, because if the money is, if it's $100, I could sign for an NFL team tomorrow for a 4-year, $100 million deal, and only $3 million of it's guaranteed.
I'll take it.
It's no. Yeah, so would I. But that's no commitment.
No.
It's no commitment. I'll be gone in no time. Look at the years. Look at how they're structured. Look at sites like Spot Rack and Over the Cap. Look at their contracts. Look at how they're structured, because that's going to tell you how much level of confidence the franchise has in the player, but then also what's like. So, like, I look at the Geno Smith situation and think he's on a 1-year prove it deal, an expensive one, but he's on a 1-year prove it deal.
But from a fantasy point of view, he's a solid starter in a Superflex league this year as a result.
Correct. But you're also, from a dynasty perspective, and I don't want to cross too much into dynasty, you have to take the consideration now that I look at Derek Carr is a much better fantasy asset than Geno Smith, even though Geno Smith might outscore Derek Carr, because Derek Carr has a 3-year security blanket. Geno Smith has 1. Daniel Jones has an even bigger security blanket. So Daniel Jones looks like you're looking at these contracts the way they're structured, and I think Jimmy G doesn't look that secure. It's a great deal for the Raiders, but it's not an overly secure deal. Geno Smith doesn't look secure. Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, these players those 4 aren't overly massively apart on each other. You could rank them. You could have a little tier between them. So, But where there's in Superflex Dynasty leagues, I look at the Carr and the Daniel Jones deals and think those are the 2 I'd rather own over Jimmy G and Geno Smith, because the team is stuck with them for the next 3 years. The security on those players means that they are going to have more of a run at being better at their job, and that's ultimately means to score more fantasy points. So, to win NFL games, but for us, fantasy points. So that's why the contracts are really important. Don't look at the top line. Look at Spot Rack. Look at how they're structured, because that's going to tell you these little clues in Dynasty. Like for now, you could probably swap Geno Smith for Derek Carr. And they'd probably try and do that if you could, based on last year.
Yeah.
And I look at Derek Carr, he's got Chris Olave, they might not have Alvin Kamara, so they might have to throw the ball more. And he's got 3 years to prove his job. Yeah, if you could... I'd look at that and think, they're the sorts of things that you can look at and people think, oh, yeah, I'll go Geno Smith because he was better last year. But Derek Carr could be a better fantasy asset because of the fact that he's got the time.
Yeah. Correct. Cool. Wide receiver that's moved there, we haven't touched on wide receivers yet, was Robert Woods signing for the Houston Texans.
Love this deal. Love it. I just love it. Like, everyone knows I love Bobby Trees anyway, but Brandon Cooks has been efficient there. He's been efficient. I mean, I know last year was a bit of a car crash. He had injuries but every other year he's been good there, and there isn't a lot of competition. I look at Bobby Trees and it didn't work in Tennessee. A lot of reasons. He was injured. Tennessee was bad. I see Robert Woods now. I don't know where his ADP is going to fall. I imagine Robert Woods is going to be the new Brandon Cooks. He's going to fall somewhere in the 7th, 8th, 9th round ADP. Thanks very much. I'm having him all day long. I'll just take that pick all day. I'll auto smash it every time because the upside we're going to talk about, they're going to take a QB. So they're going to get the runners up prize. They're going to get the runners up prize of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. It's probably going to be, in my head, I think they get Bryce Young.
Okay.
So you pair Bryce Young and Robert Woods. Yeah, thanks. I'll have that in redraft next year. I think that for me is, and that might not happen, but that in my head is where I think it's going to go. And I think, I would take that. I think for me, Bobby, what's his competition next year? They might sign another receiver.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Nico Collins. Kind of emerging, but he's
but injuries
receiver.
And
he's an outside receiver as well, so different play. So there isn't a great deal. And obviously the Texans, if they don't take a receiver now, have Case Keenum on the books. So just what Robert Woods needs.
Who keeps paying Case Keenum? Who keeps paying him? Like seriously, like we're talking about
earlier. We was after comparison for him. Case Keenum is that exact comparison.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. Case Keenum is better than Emory Jones.
Fair enough.
Case Keenum at his peak, if you can call it a peak, was a starter level NFL quarterback. He's not now. Don't forget. You forget that season with Minnesota where he took him to the NFC title game.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And he was decent. Like, I'm not sitting here saying he was elite, but he was decent. Like, I'm not saying he's anywhere near that now, but...
So the reason I wanted to bring it up was they brought Case Keenum in. Case Keenum's going to be a backup to a young rookie, we believe, right? Bryce, CJ, Richardson, whatever they choose to do it to.
Yeah.
There's a real part of me that really feels for Davis Mills in all this.
100%.
Because the guy's not done a bad job.
No. Davis Mills has been a better quarterback than Justin Fields. And I'll say that with a straight face, and I'll say that to anybody in the world. Talent-wise, results-wise, performance-wise, he's been a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Forget fantasy football. The results on the field and the way that he has played the game of football, he's been a better quarterback than Justin Fields. He was selected 50 picks behind him. He's been a better pick than Trey Lance. And I get Trey Lance has been injured and all of that. He's been a better pick than Zach Wilson.
Oh, without doubt.
It was taken 2 overall in that draft.
Yeah.
Arguably, at this moment in time, when we sit there and we reevaluate that whole draft and forget fantasy football, Davis Mills is probably the 3rd best quarterback in that draft.
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for him. I understand. Look, I understand why they're moving on. I do understand. Bryce Young is going to be if it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, either of them are going to be a level up on Davis Mills. Yeah. Having said that, I think Davis Mills is still a starter level quality. He's had no one. That defensive people
to fight it out.
I'd be up for that.
Yeah, me too.
I would have Davis Mills in Tampa. If we traded a late round pick.
What are you going to be? A 4th or 5th round pick?
No, 6th.
Late,
6th. you get a 6th round pick for Davis Mills, I'd take that and think, yeah, and let him and Trask fight it out. I think that would be good. I think he'd be a good fit in the Tampa scheme. I think I sit there and I look at what Davis Mills can do with his skill set. I think he's got a good arm. He's got good control. Yep. Doesn't make that many. Definitely, he's played behind the worst offensive line in football. I look at Davis Mills and think there's enough traits there for him to be a solid professional. And I'm not saying he's elite. Yep. I'm not sitting here saying he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. I'm not saying you should pick him up in fantasy football. But I think he's a good player. I do think he can play at a decent level. Again, I'm sitting there thinking, here's an example with the Saints. You've just paid Derek Carr $100 million. Do I think Derek Carr is a million miles better than Davis Mills? I don't. I really don't. I don't think there's that much of a gap. I think there's a gap, but I don't think it's huge. I think I would probably have tried to get Davis Mills on his rookie contract for next to nothing, paid a pick, and seen what happened. And then you're cap friendly as well. So that also helps. Like, I'd sit there and think, Davis Mills is not a bad quarterback. But I do understand why Houston moving on. When you're at 2 and you've got the choice of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, I think you've got to make that move. I think you've got to make that decision. But then even you could keep Davis Mills. You don't have to, like, he's still under contract.
I think they will. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So then I don't understand why they've signed.
They bought Case Keenum.
Well, they bought Case Keenum in to be the men.
Yeah.
Which says to me they probably will get rid of. They will get rid of Davis Mills. I think that's all I can think of is they think maybe we will take a trade for him. And I think I think there should be some teams that should be making some call. Like I think Tampa should look at him and think I'd give him a chance with Kyle Trask and say, well, look, this is your effectively last chance in the NFL. Have a shot. I think Atlanta should bring him in. They've got Desmond Ridder and no one else on the roster. Like, I think there's a couple of teams that could sit there and put in a 6th round pick for Davis Mills, maybe even a 5th. You look at the Bucks. Bucks just picked up some conditional picks. Like, they could just throw one of them in and pick him up. So I think cheap contract. Give it a year, see what happens. I think you do worse, but I think you're right. I feel sorry for Davis Mills. He's had nothing to play with behind the worst offensive line in football with a terrible defense. He's having to throw 30 points a game to get results. And like I said, he's been better than Justin Fields. Like, people sit here and think that Justin Fields is this incredible quarterback talent. He's not. He's been woeful. Yeah. He just runs. He's a good mobile quarterback who can run with the ball in his hands, but actually when he throws the ball, he's pretty average. Yeah. He's won 20% of his games. I know Davis Mills has got a slightly better win percentage than that. So I think we'll see what happens. And don't forget, Davis Mills has been changing coaches every 28 minutes or however long that they let coaches go in Houston. So I think it's going to be an interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think they get Bryce Young, and I think Bryce Young will do well-ish there. Yeah. And I think. I think Bobby Trees is a great, like, if you're sitting there thinking veteran receiver you can bring in, that's who I'd be bringing in, and think that not bad money as well. I think it works out for them nicely, and hopefully see the Texans win a couple of games next year and be a bit more competitive.
So, also one thing we missed, and we'll touch on it really quickly. The combine took place in Indianapolis. Who stood out for you? Who kind of flopped? Who you didn't partake? Your pro days coming up. What are you looking at from the combine, Murf? We mentioned Anthony Richardson earlier.
For me, he is both the biggest winner and the biggest loser, because unfortunately for me, he is going to be someone who is now effectively tied to his combine performance. And unfortunately, his expectation. Listen, Anthony Richardson's got himself paid off his combine, and he's going to be a mid-first round pick, maybe even higher than that. But no, he's for me, he's just not good enough to start in the NFL, at least for a couple of years. So for me, put on an incredible performance, showed the athlete that he is, and there's no doubt that he's arguably the best athlete. But for me, I actually really like CJ Stroud's combine. I thought for me he was really good. Yep. just the way that I look at his footwork, or the way that he did his drills. He was very professional. For me, he looks like the number one pick. He looks like the player who I think is going to probably have the better career. I think Bryce Young's got the best talent, but if he goes to Frank Reich, I think CJ Stroud will be a very, very good level quarterback in the NFL. Surprised by Will Levis. I thought he did really well. The arm looked really good. I was, pleasantly surprised a little bit, but I have some issues a little bit with him. I thought that Jackson Smith, GB, I thought he was
on Saturday night,
unbelievable. I mean, listen, I don't think there was much doubt he was going to be the wide receiver one. I think he's the clear wide receiver one now. I think he's shown that he has that potential to be a really, really, really special talent. So I thought that he was pretty good.
Was it Kincaid, the tight end, as well?
Yeah, he looked really, really good as well. Michael Mayer, I think, looked for what he did, looked all right. But yeah, Kincaid, potentially looking at him, thinking how he's going to be a potential like number 2, number 3 tight end in this class. So someone I think will really hope. I will say that I think Bryce Young opting out was a mistake. I don't know who's advising him. When you're looking at, so I think you look at the other 3 QBs. All 3 QBs advanced their profiles by working out. Anthony Richardson went through like that. Yep. CJ Stroud showed that he was the business, and Will Levis showed his arm strength and what he could do. I think Bryce Young not testing was a mistake. And maybe he's injured, but I think whoever was giving him that advice, you don't want to look like you've got something to hide.
Right.
And he did. And he looked like he had something to hide. And I think for me, if I'm sitting there now, this is, again, it's another reason I don't think Carolina are going to take Bryce Young again. It's another reason not seeing him work out. You're not making that trade at the combine, which is where the trade was made, for someone who hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
Unless he dazzled them in the room. Unless he somehow came up with these most amazing concepts and he's done something in the room that's just completely dazzled them and fooled them. And that is possible. I don't see it. So I think that was I think that was one. There's a few. There was a few that came in. I don't think anyone was absolutely, I mean, wasn't there someone who ran a really bad time?
I saw the defensive lineman Lucas Van Ness looked really good.
He did look good.
I've seen a few mocks of him going to Tampa as well, and I'm like, oh, I'd take that in that position. But he's someone I think that rose up people's kind of real draft boards, if you will, rather than fantasy boards, obviously. So, but yeah, no, there's a few to stand out. Obviously, we've still got the pro days. For a lot of
I'd say Jordan Addison was a bit of a surprise for me. I thought he would test a little better. I don't think he was bad. I still think he's the wide receiver 2 in this class. I still think Jordan Addison's going to be a very, very good player. I still think he's going to have a very, very good NFL career. I think for me, I look at Jordan Addison and think he is of the wide receivers is probably the most bust proof. I think he's unlikely to bust. I look at what his profile, his body of work is. I think Jordan Addison's fine. I would have thought he would have been a little bit quicker. I don't think that's going to hurt him too much. That might see him slip out of the first round.
Yeah.
But I do think he was someone who potentially I'd have liked to have seen a little bit more out of him. But yeah, I think really the problem with the combine is, everyone kind of looks at the analytics and all the analytics gets done and everyone looks at that and assumes it's kind of the end all be all. I'd be honest, I look at the combine less and less every year. I focus more on the pro days. I want to watch the tape of these quarterbacks throwing. I want to see their movement. Very rarely do you get a player really light up the combine with their metrics and then go on to have an amazing career. Right. You think of all these players that go on and you get all the post-combine hype. How many of those post-combine hypes really, really deliver at the level that you would expect. They don't. They just don't. Every year, a couple of years
Such
ago,
a small fraction of who they are.
Exactly
the
that.
tape they've got and the metrics and the ability and things like that. The combine is such a small segment of that. A lot of it in very controlled conditions.
Yeah.
That you can almost prepare for. You can do that. You can go to a local high school and you can practice running 40s and you can practice 3-cone drills and so on and be very good at those disciplines. But that doesn't make you very good at football.
Yeah, inversely, we see players all the time. DK Metcalf, this 3-cone, for example, was so bad. It was horrendous. And he's one of the best NFL receivers. So, you look at this and think, really, it's all, for me, the combine is more about the interviews. It's more about how you handle in front of the execs. It's how you position yourself. It's how you really think about talking to the teams. Like for me, you can talk yourself out of jobs at the combine. Anthony Richardson, someone's going to fall in love with him. Good luck to them.
Murf's out.
I'm out.
Davis Mills over.
Listen, not even close. Like if you gave me the choice right now, straight up,
I agree.
Davis Mills or Anthony Richardson, give me Davis Mills, and I'm honestly not even hesitating.
I agree.
I know there's an athlete in Anthony Richardson, but yeah, not for me. I just think, I look at the combine and think it's all about how you carry yourself. It's all about how you do things and also how you deal with the adversity. Like if you have a bad day at the combine, how you make it up with your pro day. It's those sorts of things that you kind of want to see. I want to see people who face the adversity and really go through and do things. Jets fan waiting on Rodgers. We talked about Rodgers, some people leaking that it's going to happen. Nothing official yet. No one's making the big move that he's definitely going, but it's definitely trending in that way. But thanks for joining in.
Mind up still.
He's got to go into another dark place. Or he's got to go on a helicopter somewhere, or maybe he's got to go attend a seminar on vaccinations. I don't know what he's got to do, but I think of the combine, and I think every single year with the combine, I don't say less invested. I do watch it. I do pay attention to it. I think the problem with the metrics now is people try to find these edges, and actually, I think the tape part is just as important as the analytics. And I think this is where the pro day, you've got to combine the pro day. I look at Justin Herbert for me is the perfect example. Justin Herbert came into the combine as everyone's third favorite quarterback. He was someone who people weren't overly in love with, didn't. And I listen before the combine and before his pro day, I wasn't a fan of Justin Herbert. I saw how he played at Oregon. I didn't like his footwork. I didn't like the way that he threw the ball. Didn't like his mechanics. And then I saw that actually it was the way that the Oregon Ducks will play, that they play a 3-step drop, which didn't allow Herbert to really play to his strengths. He was kind of playing in a bit of a handicap, and actually much suited to a 5-step drop. And actually, when he started working on his pro day, you could see he had this agility that he'd never shown at Oregon because he was never allowed to, because it was a 3-step drop and he playing behind him an average-ish offensive line. And so what happened was he was never getting that opportunity to show he was mobile out of the pocket and he could throw on the run. And all these things that we saw in his rookie year and his sophomore year of, oh, wow, he's got the big arm and he can move. And it was like, but his pro day showed it. His pro day showed that actually it was the system that was holding him back and that it was all there. And as soon as I saw it, I moved him up to behind Burrow and over Tua, because all of a sudden it was like all these things that weren't on his game tape were there on his pro day. And that's the difference is finding the tape of pro days. Davis Mills is a great example. Davis Mills' pro day is one of the best pro days I've seen. He threw in the pouring rain. And I mean, he was bucketing down and he just threw bombs. Honestly, some of the throws, I was like, kid's got a pretty ball. The way he throws, like I fell in love with his pro day. I thought it was unbelievable.
I remember at the time,
and I thought, this kid's got something, and then he falls to the third round. Like, I don't know, maybe people didn't watch the pro day. Like, maybe because he didn't test well at the combine. Like, he wasn't great. I mean, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. I think, yeah, for me, like the pro days give me more insight because you can kind of see a lot more. And again, I know they're heavily sanitized. They're in their own environments. They're
It
playing
feels
with
like
their
a
own
more relaxed
receivers.
environment. Yeah.
And I think that's why I enjoy it a bit more because
Yeah,
it
I
feels
agree.
like you're getting the personality of the player in the workout. And I feel
Yeah.
like you get a really good view of what you get. And
I agree.
I think the combine it is what it is. I think the combine's great for defensive linemen, offensive linemen to see what their ability, agility, all those things are. I think that's great. I think it's good for wide receivers to test their burst and their speed. I think it's and 3-cone. I don't think quarterbacks at the combine is really all that valuable. I just don't. I think you get some throwing motions, but I don't think you get a lot. Yeah, I don't think you get a lot at. Cornerbacks is the other one. Other than speed, I don't think you really get a lot on cornerback. You get a little bit on agility, but yeah, I look at cornerbacks, quarterbacks. I don't really get a lot, and then running backs is just about size, or size to speed ratio, BMI. Right?
Yeah.
You can get that from anywhere.
Fair.
Yeah,
so
but all in all,
then.
yeah, I think I don't know about you. I felt this combine was, and maybe because I was in hospital, to be fair, so maybe I was probably less exposed to it than I would be normally. I kind of felt that this combine was just very blah.
It was very unhighlight eventful, is what I'm saying. Yeah, it almost slipped by.
Yeah,
and I know last year we had Ollie on, didn't we? Ollie Hodgkins, who gave us great insight into it. And I don't know. Hopefully, we get him back on again soon. But
absolutely.
Yeah, it just felt real under the radar for me too. So
I just felt like I felt like it was more about it was more like Jalen Carter and the arrest warrant. It was more about who's not working out versus who is. There was a couple of and then the Anthony Richardson hype. I don't think there was any real spectacular.
But I think that's because we've seen top tier prospects are still your top tier prospects. The middle tier is still the middle tier, and the bottom tier is still the middle tier. Barring the odd names you mentioned, Andy Richardson, Lucas Van Ness, these guys tweaking their position slightly. Nothing, no major name has fell. Even last year, David Bell with his little hops and his jumps made headlines because of how well he was expected to come out. But nobody has greatly gone, who on earth is this guy? Where's he come from? And nobody has gone, crikey, we thought he was a top tier talent. This is abysmal. Everybody's just kind of delivered what you'd expect them to deliver.
Yeah, it was almost like predictable, wasn't it?
What's the point?
Which kind of tells you about this class. I just look at this 2023 class and think it's good, but it's not great.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a star.
No, I agree.
I don't think there's a star in this class. I don't look at this class.
Jackson Smith and Jigba could become a stars.
Could be. Yeah. Okay, he might be the one. But
I don't look at BJ Robinson in this, who's one of the most highly talented running back prospects going.
Yeah.
It's such a hit and miss.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll
see what happens. But I think this is going to be one of those years where the NFL draft, I think, is going to be more famous for the trades that are made of existing players, similar to last year. I think I'm more looking forward to seeing who are the big players who are going to get traded for picks, as opposed to who's actually going to get selected where on draft night. But 45 days away, it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
We've been going for a fair while now. We've been off air for a while, so catch us up. Where are we at with the FFCC competition, and where can people find us on your Patreon and bits? Give us a rundown on all that.
Yeah, good shout. So anyone that is interested in joining the FFCC, there is a competition going on to win a Van Jefferson jersey, signed jersey, till the end of the month. Anybody who has ever entered it before got an email from me last week. I'm going to send another one out this week. If you haven't ever entered it before and want to, it's our charity knockout best ball tournament. There is the opportunity to expand it. Anyone who enters before the end of March is guaranteed entry. So that's a £10 minimum donation, plus filling in the form. So if you go to 5yardrush.co.uk, there's a tab for FFCC. Click on that, fill in the form, donate to the charity link there, minimum of £10, which is about $15. And you're in. And not only are you in, you're entered in to win the signed Van Jefferson jersey, but you're guaranteed a spot in the FFCC regardless, which will kick off in July. So it's a best ball tournament. So it's a draft and leave it. It's a knockout bracket style. So traditionally it's 256 teams. Yeah. So it's almost playoffs from the immediate, and we get some big names in there. So some of the best fantasy football analysts in the world, from Joe Pisapia, Pat Fitzmaurice. We've had JJ Zachariason playing it. We've had you. We've had Bob Lung. We've had anyone, Joe Dolan, Carl Yates. There's loads. Anyone who's kind of anyone in the fantasy space. John Daigle was in it last year, so a lot of big names, and you have the opportunity to take them on in a head-to-head, potentially draft with them, get to know them a little bit. So awesome. Really, really cool tournament. 5th year now, believe it or not. 4 winners from 4 different countries. We've never had a repeat country winner. So Scotland, England, the USA, and Norway. So
could add a new country trophies to them, didn't it?
Yeah, it did a little bit. At least Scotland wasn't too bad this year. So our champ's coming back. Looking forward to that. Jack, who's watching, he won the first one, so we should give him an honorable mention. So and Patreon, you can join Patreon. It's been a bit quiet on there, but you do get, basically, for Patreon, if you join minimum £3 a month, you get the opportunity to join our WhatsApp chat, and I'm active on there all the time. You can ask me questions and have access to me pretty much. I want to say 24/7. It's not quite like that, but you do get access to me a lot. I'm pretty good at answering questions, except for when I'm in hospital. But other than that,
you have nothing else to do.
I didn't have the energy, mate, to be honest. But I'd been doing profiles by position. I do special Patreon casts. I'll probably do one this week, just to ease back into it. You get a copy of the book when the book comes out. That's included. You get the Patreon tournament that we do, and you win a signed jersey. Basically, the Patreon pays for itself. You get merch when you've been with us for 6 months. So the Patreon kind of pays for itself, but you get access to me. It's just a cool thing to be part of, and you get to be part of a great group of people. I'm writing articles on Fantasy Pros. Got coming up on my 41st article. I think I've just published one today, or sent one today, talking about a rookie mock draft. So you'll see that in a few days. Working on the book, which will be out, I hope, May, but realistically it could be June. Set back a little bit, but it's starting to plan and do the research. So lots of other bits and pieces going on. It's just easing back into this easily. Free agency this week, so Liam will be back here on the Dynasty Show tomorrow to update.
Friday could be a good one.
And then depending how the week goes, if there is some big breaking news on Thursday, I'll try and jump on for a little bit and try and do a solo pod just on any deals that are happening to keep going. So we'll see how it goes this week. What about you, Dan? Any other announcements or things you want to share? UKFFC or
UKFFC is going to start ramping up now. So we announced our first panelist last week, I think it was. So that one's gone out, but starting sort of tomorrow, Friday. We're looking at 2 announcements a week. So we're starting now to bring you the news of who's going to be there, who's going to be talking, what the subjects are, what stalls are going to be there, what's going to be on offer for raffle prizes and bits and pieces. So tickets are still on sale. It is selling quickly. We're pretty much at last year's number already, and the event's not till July, which I think is incredible. We've got people from 4 different countries coming to the UK to be part of it, which again is out of this world. @_ UKFFC, and get your tickets if you haven't got one.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be there. Can't wait. We'll have a stall there. So you can come and chat with me. We'll have the book on sale in hardback. So hopefully. So I'll sign them. Yeah, signed them last year. Sign for anyone. I do have some breaking news. Tremaine Edmonds has signed a deal. The Chicago Bills have signed Tremaine Edmonds.
I saw that.
4 years, $72 million deal. Yeah, Chicago Bears. I thought you stayed with the Bills, but no, Chicago Bears. 4 years, 72, $50 million guaranteed. Largest ever 4-year contract for an inside linebacker in the NFL.
Crikey.
Wow, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds in the same day.
Yes. Decent, right?
That's a big linebacker.
The same week as trading up to pick the 101 up as well.
Oh, I'll trade back from the 101.
But Vikings have got Cousins in there last year. Packers look like getting rid of Rodgers. And the Bears now going, hey, we've got a shot at this division.
Yeah.
They probably don't, because the Lions are probably not winning it. But
Well, the
Oh,
Lions
can
are
you
going to win the
imagine?
division.
It's going to be a Lions and a Bears face-off to win that division. Oh.
No, Lions are going to walk it. Lions are walking the division.
They probably will, rightly so.
Jared Goff versus Justin Fields. This is not even a contest, mate. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus DJ Moore.
Is there a bigger advert of all the talent that's going to the AFC like we started out with than looking at the NFC North and the NFC South combined?
So if you go through the
Premier League right there.
Yeah. So you got Jared Goff, Justin Fields, Jordan Love, who's played one game. Kirk Cousins. So Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback in the AFC North.
Correct.
Or NFC North, and then in the NFC South, you've got at this moment in time Desmond Ridder, Kyle Trask, probably CJ Stroud, and Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Wow, we are spoiled in the NFC this year.
The Rams are shopping Matt Stafford, so there we go with John Wolford.
Injured Matt Stafford, who's on his way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Can't wait for the NFC this year.
Brock Purdy at the Niners.
Brock Purdy versus Trey Lance at the Niners. Yeah. Geno Smith at the Seahawks.
Geno Smith.
It's box office.
QBs in the division.
It's box office all the way. Wow. All the way. And then you got the NFC East. I mean, at least the NFC East is somewhat stacked.
Yeah, two of them. I'll give you Hurts and Dak.
Yeah.
Jones falls in the middle ground, and who knows what Washington's going to do.
Yeah.
Hey ho.
Well, anyway, it's all right. It's all right because Tampa are going to sign Jacoby Brissett, and everything's going to be fine.
No, I told you, Davis Mills. Be done with it.
I know. Listen, I'm happy with Davis Mills, but it's going to be Jacoby Brissett.
Well, the rumor is Baker Mayfield, and I'll take any Brissett or Davis Mills.
No.
Baker Mayfield all day long. So
listen, if Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm not sure I can watch opening day.
I did have to bring up all these comments about good to see you back, Murf. I haven't been here either.
Yeah, I know. That's been. That is. I think I've played my. I think I've played my sympathy card a little bit. I'll
keep mine under.
Matt Cullen's just texted me, so he's watching. Matt Cullen's gone. Fuck me, you look great.
And you do, Murf. I sent it to you off air. And I sent it to you before
mate.
As well. You do look incredible at the minute. So good luck. Yeah, hope it continues.
So yeah, maybe the hospital story was all a cover story. Maybe I've been on like some sort of health farm. No,
it's been a boot camp.
Yeah, it'd be a boot camp, mate. Yeah, no, we'll get there, mate. But yeah, it's good to be back. Back next week.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a great show.
So we will.
Let's watch the chaos of free agency. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, I'm grand. Thank you. Good to be back.
Awesome, great to be back in the swing of it. Hopefully now my health's going to improve.
It will.
I've got loads of great guests ready to come on at a moment's notice. It was just about when I was going to be back and thought we'd do a couple of shows. Let's get our rhythm, and then we'll bring some guests in to start analysing free agency and the combine and the draft, and we'll kick it all off, and then we'll get ready into building these super teams for 2023. Start getting those early values. We'll do some best balls. We'll probably in a couple of weeks' time. Let's do a live best ball episode.
Yep.
So if you want to be part of that, drop us a DM, either Dan or myself. We'll do a live best ball episode. We'll draft one on here. And just have a bit of a giggle and just get some values and have a bit of a laugh. And if you want to come on and have a chat about your picks, we can do that and have a bit of fun. So looking forward to the next few weeks. Great to be back. Thank you very much, everyone. And don't forget, as always, keep rushing.